once you get into a career or a job, it's really hard to make a change. And that doesn't mean you have to find your perfect job immediately, but you have to realize that you need to maintain flexibility and you need to take action. So if you're stuck in a job that you don't like and you don't want to be in, that doesn't mean quit tomorrow. I mean, start taking steps so that you can move on. You don't have to be stuck.
Welcome, everyone, to the Road Less Traveled Show. This is a show about people that were successful in a prior career that left to go down a different path. I'm your co-host, Richard Coyne.
I'm your co-host, Bill Zahller.
On today's show, we have Jim Pfeifer, and we're certainly glad to have you on board, Jim. Over to you, Bill.
Yeah, Jim, thanks for being on the Road Less Travel Show. Pleasure. Can you tell us a little about yourself, what's your career you initially started on, and how long you were in that?
Yeah, sure. Thanks for having me, guys. So I'm on career number 4, so I'm not going to go into detail on all of it. But for the first 12 years out of college, I worked for a reinsurance company, and then I was a finance and accounting teacher in inner city schools in Columbus, and finally I was a financial advisor for a number of years. And that once I started learning about money and how money works, that kind of opened my eyes and taught me that most of the stuff financial advisors sell, I didn't want to invest in. And so I moved into active real estate and then passive real estate, which is where I am now.
Okay. Can you tell us a little bit more about the path you're currently on as you shifted over to the investing full time?
Yeah. So I'm full-time passive investor, and I invest in, all kinds of different syndications, different asset classes, multifamily, mobile homes, a lot of the standard stuff, self-storage, ATMs. I'm into some resort properties here and there. And, I've started a group called Leftfield Investors, which is just a community where we help people, learn about passive syndications, because most people don't know about it, don't know what it is. Most people are investing in paper assets in the stock market and those kind of things. And our group kind of just helps people meet others that are doing the same thing as they are. And we help each other become better investors.
That's great. Yeah.
Yes.
And,
nice.
yeah, you want to let people know how they can find out more about your group?
Yeah, so Leftfield Investors, we have a website. It's www.leftfieldinvestors.com, and it's free to join. We also have we call it the Infielders group, which is, there's a subscription for that, which has some tools and things that'll really help investors on specific deals and learn about sponsors and things like that. But the other group, we meet on Zoom monthly, and it's just, like I said, an education and networking group to help people become better passive investors.
That's great.
Yeah. So, Jim, you'll have to bear with me as I'm on my mobile studio at this point. I'm not in my normal place. I had to, record this one on the road. But anyway, so again, certainly pleased you're here. Jim, is there a in your perhaps your financial advising area, or maybe one of your other fields that you worked in before, is there a funny story that you can share along the way, something that kind of made you scratch your head and say, wow, why am I doing this?
Absolutely. I don't know if it's funny, but it certainly made me scratch my head. And this is as a financial advisor, that's how our name came to be, because Leftfield Investors, all the guys I used to work with think of me as way out in left field, because I'm investing in these crazy alternative assets like apartment buildings, and it always cracks me up because that is not alternative to me. Now it's just standard. But, in my advising career, some of the top producers were so confusing, meaning they would be explaining things to people and people wouldn't have any idea what they were talking about, or they were just abrasive and were kind of forcing people into boxes and saying, hey, you got to invest in this or you're an idiot, basically. And the more confusing or the more abrasive these people were, it seems like the clients wanted to get away from them so bad that they just said yes. So a lot of these producers were really successful because they were either confusing or confronting their clients to such a degree that a lot of these people ended up just saying, yeah, I'll buy that or invest in that. Just leave me alone after that. And it really, it just made no sense to me. I wasn't confrontational. I wasn't, I don't think I was confusing. And so when I left and started Leftfield Investors, that's what we try to do, is just explain what's out there, help people to decide on their own whether they want to invest, rather than trying to confuse them into submission, which is what it seems like some financial advisors do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a whole world out there that people, unfortunately, with ERISA and everybody now becoming, responsible for your own retirement as of the 1970s with ERISA. People, don't know where to put their money. So what do? They put it into a 401k, and that's the only thing they feel like they have time for. They don't have the time to really educate themselves about other things so often. And that's a shame, because there are some incredible opportunities out there that are, in the left field, as you say, things like the apartments, a lot of things you mentioned that you're into. So yeah, nice.
Yeah. And it's also interesting. I talked to somebody today who said, well, if this is so great, why isn't everybody doing it? Right. And that's where the education needs to come in, because it's a heavier lift, right? If you're going to invest $25,000 this year, it's a lot easier to take $2,000 out of your, your paycheck and put it right into a 401k every month than it is to cut send a wire to someone you might have met once on the phone to invest in this deal. So I think it's a lot more complicated to invest alternatively. And part of what we're trying to do is help educate people. Hey, there's easier ways to do it. It can be done. And it's just that, the banks and financial institutions, they're really good marketers, and they've sold us the 401k and they've sold us all these products for so long. We think that anything outside of that is risky and crazy. But I tell you, when the stock market dropped 30% at the beginning of the pandemic, I didn't panic, because I didn't lose 30% of my money, because rents don't go down 30% just because the market value goes down.
Right. Absolutely. And I think to that point, like you said, as it's becoming more clear, I mean, there's clearly not a channel for these type of investment private placements. There's not a CNBC, right? There's a 24-hour, news cycle about promoting and selling and talking heads on there about. But a lot of stuff I don't think, works like it did maybe, 20, 30 years ago, with interest rates where that, I mean, the 10-year as we're recording is 1.29. I mean, how would you live off yield if you had a 60-40 traditional, portfolio back then, where you can go into, like I said, some of these private placements, you're getting, 7, 8 pref, 10 prefs, depending where you are on the stack on that. It's if you're looking for income, I think there's a lot, like you're saying, a lot of good alternatives out there, and you can make a case for it that you have to have a substantial amount of money live off, 1.2% interest.
Yeah, absolutely.
Net it's a negative for inflation, right? Inflation is certainly more than 1.2%. So you're losing real purchasing power every year with that investment. Yeah.
And one of the ways I look at it is, let's say you save up $1 million in your 401k, and at retirement, you have $1 million. Well, most financial advisors are going to say you can't spend the principal. So you can only take out 4% a year, right? That's the recommendation. So now you're living on 40 grand. Let's assume you pay 25% in taxes. Now you're living on 30 grand. Well, if the stock market tanks 30%, now you're living on $21,000, right? So it drops. But if you have that same $1 million, you put it into a syndication and they're paying you 7%, now you're earning $70,000. You're not paying taxes on it because of the way the cost segregation, bonus depreciation, all that. You're probably not paying taxes. So now you're earning 70 grand after tax. And let's say that the market drops 30%. Well, your income isn't going to drop 30% because rents don't drop that quickly. So that's to me, it's just that these alternative investments, it just makes more sense in retirement and before retirement.
Absolutely. In the environment we're in now with, $6 trillion recently put in the last, 18 months put into the money supply, there's definitely inflationary pressures. Right? There's been a velocity of money and all that, but with a real asset like apartments, as inflation goes up, rents can go up with that, right? You're indexed to that versus a fixed asset that only pays X. You're kind of at the mercy of it somewhat. I mean, business can adjust, but the bonds aren't going to. I mean, if you got long side of that.
Right. And you're also in real estate, your inflation is eating away at your debt and paying it down for you. So you have another benefit.
Right. It's fixed, right? So as it inflates away, your delta becomes greater on that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Jim, what was can you give us a deciding factor that got you to change jobs from the path you were on that put you on the current path you're on? Was there was it one moment where you just had an epiphany or just, over time, you're like, this seems like the path I want to eventually get myself down?
Yeah, I think, the longer I was a financial advisor, the more I was learning about how money works. Now, I'd been big into the stock market, 25 years, my whole career. And as I was learning about money and learning about banks and all that, I just learned that the stock market isn't where I wanted to be. And so I slowly started spending more of my time in the office working on my own real estate stuff than I was on going out to find new clients and things like that. And then I also, when I was an advisor, I only sold the products that I actually invested in. And so I found that as I was moving forward, I was recommending real estate to my clients, but I'm not licensed for it, so I can't really recommend it. I also wasn't getting paid for it, which is why most financial advisors don't recommend real estate, and they also don't understand it. But so that just showed me that, I wasn't really believing in what I was doing anymore. And then, slowly I started investing more in these syndications, and I built up some cash flow, and I realized, I can do this. I don't need the W-2 from financial advising or anything like that. I can go and work on my own and build up a, cash flow from these investments, and that could sustain us and actually give us a better living. I also have, free time. It's not just about building wealth, but building wealth gives you freedom, right? Time freedom. And that's what it was about for me. And so once I kind of got to the point where I realized I had enough income, and I really realized that I'm not a believer in what I'm selling, I realized I had to do something different.
Right. Yeah. You have choices when you have that kind of you can choose how you spend your time. You can choose what type of investments you're going after. So again, that's part of freedom, choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And to get there, you need multiple streams of income, right? And not just income from one source, your W-2, but having multiple investments. If one doesn't work out, the others will fill in.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. So Jim, as you were moving away from the financial advising and toward Leftfield Investors, were there some obstacles that you encountered along the way?
Yeah, I think the first investments I did when I was just learning about syndication, it's a lot of people call it, the shiny object syndrome. And I had that pretty bad. And I went to a seminar and learned about, syndication, and I had a self-directed IRA with some money in it. And I just kind of went crazy. I'm like, oh, I met somebody, let's invest with them. Oh, I met somebody else. And I didn't have any policies or procedures or any way to evaluate anything. I like you, I'll invest with you. And so that's changed significantly just through time and learning. And also when we started Leftfield Investors, we all started kind of communicating and learning together. And through that, we've really learned that the most important thing is to vet the operator, understand who you're investing with. You got to get to know, like, and trust is the mantra of this industry. But, before I send somebody a wire for, like we said, $50,000, I really want to make sure I know and understand that person. And hopefully they've been maybe referred by somebody else I trust, because then the trust transfers. But that's the hardest part, was kind of figuring out, where do we find syndicators and where do we find ones that are real syndicators that you can develop a relationship with, because there's different kinds of syndicators. Some are operators and they do a great job of operating the asset. And there's others that are great marketers, or, and they do a great job marketing, but how are they at actually managing the asset? So you really have to dig in to figure that out.
Absolutely. We've said a lot of times on here before that, I'd much rather be involved with a good, really strong syndicator in an okay deal versus an okay syndicator in a good deal, because the latter can go sideways quickly. Where if you have somebody that's a solid, experienced operator, they're going to be able to, everything's not going to be a home run, but you still want to, reduce your risk the most you can. And they're going to be able to make the right choices to make the best of whatever situation occurs with that asset.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's people industry. Like you said, that's what it's really about at the end of the day.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, Jim, like in your career there, what was one of the first victories that you can remember after starting Leftfield investing? Was there something like you realize you're on the right path at this point?
Yeah, I don't know that there was one clear thing, because, this investing passively, it's not a get rich quick scheme, right? It's a grow your wealth very slowly scheme. And so I can't point to one victory, but when, I was finally realizing, like, hey, these distributions are coming in, these things I was investing in, they're real. And it transitioned from my initial, shiny objects syndrome spending spree, which I wouldn't invest in any of those deals now. Not that they're bad deals. They're just not, they wouldn't qualify anymore. So I think that it's just that slowly I realized, okay, I don't have to do all of this, interesting stuff. I can just do the boring stuff, and that's what makes you money. And I was talking to somebody the other day, and that's what he said is investing should not be interesting. Speculating should be interesting. And so you have to kind of figure out how much do you want to invest and how much do you want to speculate. I still speculate. I chase the shiny object, but it's with small amounts of money. So if I get some big wins, that's great. If I lose, it doesn't matter. But with the rest of it, I'm very careful with how I spend that money. And I think that was learning where to invest, where to put your money, and you don't just meet somebody and then immediately invest with them. And then once you invest with somebody, you don't immediately invest in their next deal. Maybe wait 6 months or a year just to see if it pans out, because these are very long-term illiquid investments and it takes time. So the sooner you can get started, the better. But I think what I've realized is you really just have to take your time, not get excited about a deal. There's always another deal coming. And those are some of the things that I've learned through Leftfield Investors and the network we've built.
Absolutely.
Yeah, makes sense. So Jim, and with Leftfield Investors, is there anything humorous that you've encountered along the way of your journey with you and the team, and perhaps one of the people that is a member of the group?
Yeah, I think the funniest thing I think that happened was we have monthly meetings. So every month we have a big meeting and everyone can come, and we usually get a guest speaker. And, we had this, the guest was looking at the Zoom screen, and there was one guy that was just laying in his bed. And I was kind of looking at it like, okay, it's a Zoom meeting, so do what you want to do. But then the speaker kind of confronted him and said, "Oh, look at that. We got this guy lounging in his bed. How great is that?" And just kind of went on and on. And it was just, it was kind of entertaining. And that was, so you never know what you're going to get with Zoom, I guess.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing how, the world has changed because it had to, and we adapted because we had to. But at some point in time, we've certainly had our share of Zoom moments. And, I've shared this story before, but there was one where a friend came over and her 90-pound dog, burst through the door in the office while I was recording a Zoom session. And, I was, the dog loves me, so she had to come say hello and just jumped in and mauled me while it was, but it was pretty funny. So yeah, those moments are there. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's also, the other thing is with Zoom, initially Leftfield Investors was just going to be 12 people local, Columbus, Ohio, where I live, that we were just going to be like a dinner club and meet every month. And our first meeting was supposed to be March 18th of 2020. And so we never met, and we haven't met still, right? We've never all gotten together, because now, we have people from all over the US. We even have a guy, when we have our meetings, he lives in China. And so we're all having, just ate dinner, and he's usually eating his breakfast during the call. So I think, although, there's some funny things that happen with Zoom, and it's not the best way to communicate, it really is what allowed our group to grow, because we grew much beyond the 12 original people that were going to be part of our, our own mastermind. We just built a bigger group, and Zoom has helped with that for sure.
Absolutely. So Bill and I run 2 monthly groups where we host, different groups, and we're looking at adapting to how we go forward. We're starting to do in person again, but at the same point in time, we don't want to lose the connection to the ability to have somebody from Florida or somebody from California, somebody from out of the country, as you said, connect into that session. I've certainly been on a million conference calls in the past, and sometimes it's a little hard to hear, but again, the ability to connect people that aren't physically in the room is fantastic. So we're looking forward to that. So
yeah, and it'll be interesting to see if we can figure out a way to do both, right? Have an in-person meeting with a Zoom component. Right. That's what we're trying to figure out also eventually.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we're working on, right?
Yep. Well, Jim, where are you today in your journey on the new career path? Where do you see, as you're talking about growing through Zoom, where do you see Leftfield Investors becoming? Is there more you want to do? You want to do like events at some point, or is it going to kind of stay kind of more of a tight knit group, or what's kind of your plans for it?
Well, at first I really worked hard to keep it small. Mm-hmm. And, I was very restrictive on who we would allow in, because I wanted it to be a mastermind. And what we found was we kind of have two different kinds of people that join, and one kind of just wants to observe and maybe learn. and the others are super engaged and they want to talk and they want to interact and they want to invest in deals and they're really into it. And so, I feel like we've built the group so we can cater to both of those. And the first group, they might go to our website, leftfieldinvestors.com, and check that out. And they might come to a couple of meetings or watch recordings of the meetings or listen to our podcast. And then the other group, now we have a forum. It's the paid group. And we have a forum where people can, interact with each other, ask questions about sponsors and deals and that kind of thing. And then that's where we have all of our tools and we have monthly meetings for that group as well. So I think, where I see it growing is now my passion is I want to spread the word to as many people as possible that you don't have to just have a 401k. You don't have to only invest in the stock market. You can do both, or you can, we call it, the right field is the stock market and the left field is kind of what we're doing. And then, there's a lot of people who are in center field and, most people who join our group transition from right into the left field a little bit or all the way. And so, our mission now is to keep growing our network, help people understand that this is an option. This is a great way to build wealth, and building wealth builds time freedom. And that's what we're going for. And so we're all in on getting as many people to understand that investing in real assets that produce actual income for you, that's the way to grow your wealth. And it's not as hard as it seems.
That's great. Yeah. I think it's important. Like you said, there's 99% of the population or the advisors are pitching more traditional stocks, bonds, that kind of investment where, like, so the education, I think, is the key factor here. I mean, and I'm invested in the stock market as well. But I like the balance, to be able to have a lot of private placement, real estate, what we know and love, but then also have some in the stock market. I think it's not a bad thing, but I wouldn't want to be all just on one side of the trade with the stock market. We have no control over, right? It's how it performs. We can pick our markets, we can pick, our areas, we can pick our improvement plans. We have control in some regards to, how the asset performs, at least where we want to be.
Right. Yeah. And you can also ask questions, right? I mean, if I have a question about a deal I'm invested in with you, I can call you up and ask you. Right. But if I have a question about Apple, I can't call up Tim Cook and say, hey, what's the deal here? So even though I don't have control, I have access, and that makes a huge difference to me also.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, can't you just ask Siri to help you get to Tim Cook and get that question?
I haven't tried that. I'll have to try that.
Maybe try that. Hey Siri, I got a question for Tim Cook. Yeah. So and again, it is pretty amazing. I think one thing that's abundantly clear, hopefully to everybody, is that listen, if you don't do something in terms of investing and looking down the road toward your future, you're going to be in a bad spot. So take action and do something. If you're only able to, through your employer 401k, to invest in a couple mutual funds or whatever, limited choices, at least do something. But we also strongly advocate going beyond and taking some additional initiative and action and going to check out some of these other things that we're talking about. Because again, there's very, very powerful investments out there in the left field. So
yeah, absolutely, I totally agree.
So Jim, what's the future for you? Where do you see yourself down the road? Obviously we nobody has a crystal ball, but what do you see down the road?
That's a great question. I think that when I started passive investing before Leftfield Investors, I was probably working a few days a week and just kind of managing my investments. And that's kind of the future that I see. Then we started Leftfield Investors, and that turned into a full-time job that I don't get paid for, at least not in money. But I have gotten paid in networking. And, it's a cliche, your network is your net worth, but it is so true. The more people that I interact with, the more I learn, the more opportunities are opened up to me. And so for the future, I think that we're kind of in the building phase of Leftfield Investors. Once we get it built and really, really going and have a super strong community, I think that will flow on itself. And I don't think I'll ever retire. I think I will always, be investing the way that I'm investing now. It might change some, but it will also, I'll just be investing or working on it fewer days out of the week and fewer hours. And the more I do it, the more time freedom I'm going to have. And then everything I do is going to be a complete choice, and it's going to be up to me. And Leftfield Investors, I think once we get it solidified, it will grow and become its own thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with the network side of it. I mean, it was a Jim Rohn, I think, that said, you're kind of an average of your 5 closest friends, because I think it's so true. I mean, I think the opportunities are out there, but it's almost like was a reticular activating system that your RAS that, you filter out everything that's not important to you. But like if you buy a red car, all of a sudden you see all the red cars, your same one on the road, they were always there. You just it wasn't important to you. So it got filtered out. So I think same thing with opportunities. If you're around people that are like-minded or investing, even if you don't invest in that particular deal, it gets you thinking about it, looking for that same thing other places. And I think it's critical to be around people that have that same kind of mindset and goal. They're goal oriented. They want to learn. They want to invest and advance. And I think it benefits everyone. Kind of the rising tide concept on that.
Right. And it just makes everyone think that much harder about what they're doing. But I remember the first time I met somebody who invested in the same sponsor as I did, the relief was just like, oh my gosh, someone else is doing this same thing. And then I found out he was in the same exact deal. And I was like, let's be best friends forever, because I finally found somebody who's doing the same thing. And I just felt like, okay, now I'm not this crazy person out in left field, or at least if I am, there's somebody there with me.
You got company at least, no?
Yeah.
Oh, excellent. What is something you've recently implemented in your business that's helped it along, helped you grow?
We've been talking about it really, and it's just the networking, and that's really helped my business a lot. And then also realizing the difference. And again, we've already talked about it, but the difference between speculating and investing. And my thought, and this, other people have different opinions, but the stock market is almost all speculation. And that's why I'm moving into investing now, which is real assets. And so I think both of those are what's really allowed me to grow, the networking and realizing that I'm investing now.
Mm-hmm. And what you mentioned before a little bit, do you have like an allocation, like for speculation, like at 10% or something like that, of kind of more at-risk money?
Yeah, I haven't really calculated the amount, but there's a couple of there's some startup websites that allow you to invest in startups, and some of them you can get into for as little as $100. Others you got to be into for 5,000. So I just try to keep it small, and I have a separate kind of bucket of fund money that I invest. It's IRA rollover money, and I had a little win with Bitcoin, so I just kind of roll that money over into other interesting things that may go to zero or may go to the moon.
Right. That keeps it interesting. Like I said, as long as it's as long as you, like you said, you realize what that money is, right? It's the at-risk money versus your nest egg that you're moonshot for. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And you got to separate it, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not speculating with the mortgage payment.
That's right.
No, absolutely not.
Exactly. So Jim, what advice would you give somebody who's looking to make a path change where they are?
It's hard. It's really hard to change your path. And I was talking to a young man yesterday who is just getting out of college and ready to go. And we were talking about how once you get into a career or a job, it's really hard to make a change. And that doesn't mean you have to find your perfect job immediately, but you have to realize that you need to maintain flexibility and you need to take action. So if you're stuck in a job that you don't like and you don't want to be in, that doesn't mean quit tomorrow. I mean, start taking steps so you can replace that income or find something new so that you can move on. You don't have to be stuck. And I think a lot of people get stuck and they think, well, there's nothing else I can do. And having other income streams through this passive investing really allows you to get unstuck, because if you have some multiple income streams, maybe you can reduce the hours at your current job because you don't need the full paycheck, or maybe you can change jobs and do something you like more that you don't get paid as much because you have these other income streams balancing it out. So I would say take action, figure out how to make the change, and just do it incrementally. You don't have to blow everything up. You can take baby steps and still get there. It doesn't have to be immediate.
It's like levering up as you're levering down. You don't, it's not a light switch. You got to have a plan to get there. But at the same point in time, take some time and, use some extra hours while you're in your day job and start moving in the direction of building those passive investments and those alternative investments. And you can get there. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's really what I did with the when I was transitioning out of financial advising. I would do an hour a day of real estate, and then it turned into 3, then it turned into 5, and then when I realized I was spending my whole day in the office working on my real estate, that maybe it was time to move on. And so you don't have to do it all at once. And I think you have to take action, but you can take small steps and still get there.
Right. And that's almost it. I mean, these days there's less and less barriers or excuses for not being educated, right? There's so many good podcasts out there. There's so much you can learn on YouTube. You can find whatever niche you want to learn more on. I mean, they have, college courses on there, it's very easy to educate yourself if you have the motivation, desire. Like, you can do that on the side and you build up your knowledge before you make that transition. It's not, stop one day and just start a new career from ground zero. You can build that up as you go. I think it's critical. Yeah. Absolutely.
It's never been easier than it is right now to get into alternative investing and learn about it and actually invest in it. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it's there. If you want it, you can go get it. Anyone can do it if they try, right?
Absolutely. Well, Jim, what's one of the best ways that the listeners can get a hold of you and find out more about what you do at Leftfield Investors?
The easiest way is to go to www.leftfieldinvestors.com, and you can click subscribe and you'll get our newsletter, or you can contact me directly. My email address is jim@leftfieldinvestors.com. And, I have calls with people every day, half hour, 45-minute call. If someone wants to learn about what we do or how we can help them, I'm always open for that.
Great. Well, Jim, we definitely want to thank you for being on the Road Less Travel Show. Really appreciated the conversation, enjoyed it, and wish you continued success.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, Jim. We'd also like to thank our audience. We appreciate you listening, tuning in. Again, we want to continue bringing you great content, so please give us a 5-star rating out there on whatever platform you listen to. And remember, folks, the road less traveled may be calling you. We recommend that you listen and take action. Thanks for joining.